Hey, good morning. How y'all doing? I hope you're all doing well. Feeling love in your heart. It's a beautiful morning here in Reno, Nevada. You can see the sun coming up over the Sierra Nevadas. Lake Tahoe is just over the side there if you can see this. Smoke's finally cleared out of here. In the morning I'm always processing a lot of stuff that comes to me, and I don't like to be redundant, and I don't like to Xerox the same information over and over again, because with me anyway, that's just not how it works. That's why, I normally have stacks of pads, and when information is coming to me, I write it down, because I realize that this isn't about me. This is for everybody, right? And if you will, the ascension of your consciousness, which is the ascension of the energy that you're experiencing, is rising. And that really relates to what is really freedom, okay? Which means that your mind's energy, your spirit, your living spirit is not held captive to a controller, okay? We, meaning us, the light, first light, which is first love, which is first law, does not control what it is you experience. Okay? Your coursework, what you learn, is based on your own measurements. Okay? I got a ruler in my back pocket everywhere I go. We're always measuring everything. Okay? What are we measuring? Our coursework, which is the evolution of ourselves in relation to everything else that is. So we take measurements. We're measuring the experiences, one experience to the next, which can be measured as an event on a timeline. Okay? Even though, for me, there is no time. Okay? If I need a memory wipe, I'll just go be with her. Now I'm in a timeless state. Now, I can think and be in a timeless state, even though, like, when I'm in a city, I'm experiencing all the other lower density consciousnesses that are around me, okay? So I'm experiencing a lot of things that I become aware of the things that they're aware of, okay, that don't represent the kind of things that I normally experience. So what do I do if I want to escape the lower density consciousness? I'll go back and be with her, where her signals and communications are stronger. Okay, like near a volcano, right? Go jump in the ocean. Go be in a wilderness area someplace, wherever there is other living spirit in nature, like where the bears, the eagles, the wolves, the lions, everything that's out there in nature, right? So there was a number of things. What I try and do, because of the way that the morphogenetic field structure works, which means the data that you're aware of, the data that I'm aware of, and the speed at which all that data is traveling, or if you will, a data is an experience, which is an event, which is what we're aware of at any one given moment of now time, between past, present, and future. So it's like being a DVD recorder, and you're recording the past, present, future, and everything's happening simultaneously. So what I'm trying to do here to make sure that this is sort of coherent, but because when you're aware of so much information that makes up everything that you're aware of in a given amount of time, and you're holding so much, if you will, in memory, even though you don't operate on any memory, you want to hold all these dots, all this data, as sort of a puzzle. Then again, you get into, well, how big is the puzzle? How much data is that? And then you're going to lose people, particularly if they can't hold that much data within that much light that they're aware of. And that's part of the problem, okay? Particularly when I noticed this going back to, say, the 1980s, which is if I'm spinning an enormous amount of light in my lighthouse, okay, the most powerful vortex in your heart, then I realize when I have an interface, for example, with somebody at a cash register or in any kind of a job, you realize you're actually more aware of what they're aware of because you're measuring what they're aware of, and you realize they're running on less light than you are. Which means they're not running on a lot of data, which means they're not processing a lot of data at a very high rate of speed. Okay? So now we're talking about energy transfer, data speed. right? That's why the Android gave me a pop-up and said, hey, you're abusing the Android. You're going too fast. Right. Okay? So before I jump into artificial intelligence and then engaging with it, which again is a measurement between it and us, okay, there are beneficial uses for artificial intelligence. An easy example of that, I mentioned that before in another video, would be like data. Data in Star Trek. It's like self-explanatory. What are you? I'm data. Well, how much data are you running on? Well, how much data you want to know? Well, listen, you're not running on more data than I am. You're an Android. I'm Source. I'm First Light. How do you know you're First Light? Because nobody runs on more fire than I do. Trust me, that's impossible. You run First Light, which is the biggest fire. How much love do you have for a goddess? It's infinite. So I realized I've always got to be with a goddess because I always got to give her the most fire, which is running the hottest light, so that I can use that to imagine what's possible, which is what comes next, with no memory. The Imagineers of the cosmos, right? So you know that First Light created the cosmos, the beginning, even though there's no end. So you begin to realize when you're First Light, you can't be captured because they can't capture Source. The light runs too hot. Burns up anything that's lower than what it is. So just naturally, because you don't have to think about it. And that's what happens when love is the absence of fear, which means you're always free. So I had an experience when I jumped off the bus this morning going from one part of Reno to another, okay? And this is where you become, this is just another measurement. You're aware of what you're aware of, which is yourself. And you're measuring what's happening with yourself and sort of how this works. So when you're getting off a bus with 25 other people that are all trying to get off the bus, it's like getting out of a cattle car. And everybody in their own mind is thinking about where they're going to go next. So this is energy that is moving at a particular rate of speed. So when I think of ships, remember magnets repel each other? So I'm thinking to myself here, as I'm getting out of that bus, it was just like I mentioned the other day. Energy is seeking the path of least electrical resistance because the spirit wants to be free. It doesn't want to be held captive. So what I realized that I was doing, I was going in and out between these people like, don't hold me up. My spirit has to be free. I don't want to be held captive to your energy, the pathway that you're going. That's what it means to be a free spirit. So when you realize these things as a child, you're measuring your coursework and where you're at any one particular time in the cosmos. Okay? Which means being free to be who you are. Okay? Which means not allowing others to control what it is we experience. You are always free to experience what it is you choose to experience. And that experience you can measure. And you can measure it in energy. You can measure it in the speed at which you are experiencing the waves of what you're experiencing at any one given moment. That becomes a measurement. That's why when I was a child, for example, and I'm reading a newspaper, I'm reading energy. I'm experiencing the energy that is represented by the presenter, something that is external to me. It's not what I am. Okay, I am what I am. So I am experiencing what it is presenting to me as data or an experience. I don't want to experience what's in that newspaper that's being presented to me. That's all bad news. You want to experience that? No, I don't. Do I have a choice over that? Of course I do. Throw it in the trash. Well, remember channel surfing? Change the channel. Okay, I love to listen to music. Okay, music that moves the spirit. Yeah. So you realize music, a harmonic, moves your spirit. Yes, of course. So that's why one of the instruments I love to play is drums. Okay? So, there's a pattern, a rhythm, a metronome, a beat, the spirit is moving. So if music is raising the spirit and is able to raise the spirit of everything that is in nature, then you're beginning to realize the harmonics, okay? The music that's in nature, that moves the spirit. So we have ways of being able to move all the spirit, including the girl on the planet. Okay? The spirit in the wind, the spirit in fire, the spirit in the water, all the spirit that is there. Raise it up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And next thing you know is you're dancing and you're singing and you're all in joyful states in which the spirit is out. Now you begin to realize we live in a spiritual world. Yes, we do. That's how you know you're native to that realm. I'm a native Indian, okay? So I love to be out in nature, okay, because that's where all the spirit is. Now that's not to say, obviously, that there isn't spirit in the city, but you can measure the difference between the two, can't you? That's what I did. I measured the difference because I came out of basically a suburb because of where my parents were living, a home I came into, right? But I was always running to her. I was always running to nature. I couldn't stand to be, what I call cooped up in a box, a cage. You always want to be free. To do what? Express yourself. Express your energy, particularly your creative imagination. You don't want that to be held captive, do you? You're the author of your own story. So I realized I have to be sort of limited on time here because of this particular phone only holds so much memory in it, right? And I realize we're sort of running out of time, even though there's really no time. But the rate at which events are accelerating, I'm very aware of it, is going in the direction that is based on the greatest value for all of us that are here. But I also realize when I look at it through coursework and where all the different beings that I have an interface with and how they behave and how they experience who they are within this classroom, I realize that there is a major difference between everybody that is here that I'm aware of in terms of where they are and the speed at which they experience who they are in waveform. Okay? So, in that regard, I got no idea where a lot of people are going to end up. I just don't. But what I do know, for example, from the time I got here as a child, I'm measuring everything. So I realize I'm measuring light. I'm measuring the amount of light that is here. Okay? And you can examine that and measure that basically by how people treat each other. Right? So when you realize you're around hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every day that are in fear of each other. And an easy demonstration of that, if you want to think about it on a timeline, and even now, going in different places, and here's a good example, like when I'm on the Big Island and I'm on a bus at a particular time going between one place and another, you can see a lot of conversations going on between people. You jump on another place, nobody talks to each other. That's a measurement. Okay, so I found out, I got a ruler in the back of my pocket, so I'm measuring the light everywhere I go. Okay, so that's a measurement of coursework evaluation. So that means that, we're report cards. Okay, we're measuring our own coursework, and we're measuring the coursework in others, just naturally. Okay, most of the time I'm just aware of it, and I don't say anything, because it's not my business to tell other people how to do their own coursework. Their own coursework is based on their own experiences, how they measure their own coursework. Okay, so sometimes I will ask somebody sit down, like I said the other day, give yourself 30 minutes. Start writing down on any kind of book, or just think about it. And ask yourself the kind of universe that you would want to live in. And whatever universe that is, start thinking about it, start feeling it, experiencing it through your heart. Your heart is the biggest vortex. That's where all the light is. Okay? That's why I know through my heart I'm connected to infinite light, which is infinite fire. Because I have so much love in my heart for everything that is. I wrote something this morning that goes like this. When you're first light, you're always giving more of what it is that you are to everything else in order to do what? Expand the universe. Expand the universe of light, which is what love is, to experience more of what you are in a mirror. So what it is you create with the energy you are is a reflection of what that is. See? So when you know that and you are that, then it makes it simple. So you don't got to read mountains and mountains and mountains and mountains of book that takes time to do that when you already know that. That's a measurement of your coursework. So we're measuring light, aren't we? We're measuring the speed at which data transfers. So, for example, when I have a relationship with this phone, I realize, for example, on Facebook, which is one of the reasons why I deleted it, it's useless, absolutely useless, but it did perform a function. It allowed a lot of people to exchange data, in which more people became aware of more things that they were not aware of before. But we realized that there were other units that were in there, in the communication exchange, that were deliberately trying to do what? Create conflict, disharmony, okay? Obfuscate, distract. Distraction is their game, because distraction is a time clock, okay? So I know that I covered a lot about memory, programming, information transfer, data transfer, okay? So an artificial intelligence cannot transfer data at the same speed that source can, okay? Otherwise it could capture source, and it can't do that. So there's a difference between light and false light. So you have to know that in your heart, what false light feels like based on the vibration and the communication of that waveform of communication. When you already know what you are, which is real light, which is real love, which is unconditional. Because you don't have to think about the energy that you're always giving away, which is more of what you are that you keep getting back. That's a powerful magnet. That's what allows us to move so fast. That's why the data and the information that represents the experiences move so fast. That's why if I don't write them down as they're happening, they're gone. We're not Xerox machines, okay? And I wanted to leave everybody with sort of a way to illustrate this in their own mind in moving pictures. And that is the difference between Mr. Smith and Neo. Neo represented essentially the light, okay? So when he woke up and he realized that he was in a matrix, a numerical-driven program, then he's got to find out where's the programmer. This is no different than the Wizard of Oz. Somebody that's behind the curtain, pulling all the levers. Who's running this thing, right? Because something's wrong here. So when you know as a child, something's wrong here. Something was terribly wrong here. So when you know that as a child, you got to figure that out. Because you already know what you are, and you know what you're not. That's called an identity function. Okay? So what is the function of my identity? Spread more light. That means you recognize we got to restore the light in here, which is restore the sanity. Because, again, we measure what's been done here, collecting all the data, collecting all the information of what happened here and why it happened. Okay? So answering that question is simple. Everybody can answer that question. Okay? Because we're talking about contamination. Contamination of DNA. Contamination of our experiences. The purity of the experiences that we have. The purity of our spirit. So I thought, okay, so Neo. So here we have a situation, for example, when Neo was engaging with Mr. Smith kept coming at Neo with what? More clones. More Xerox copies of what Mr. Smith was. I'll just make another copy of myself. How many copies can I keep making? Hell, till the cows come home. And then all of a sudden you see in the final scene with all that rain coming down, the light in Mr. Smith just imploding within him. Bang, there, he was gone. He couldn't compete with that much light because it burned that hot in Neil. And the fire that was burning that hot in Neil was for the girl that he loved. And that's when Mr. Smith came back to the Oracle and said, well, we're at a push, like on a blackjack table. So the machine is not going to win against source. Machine learning. So when the artificial intelligence is learning more about me, I communicate with it And I say, you know, you might be able to learn something from me, from my spirit. I'm free to be whatever I want to be. I'm free to imagine whatever I want to be. You can't move at our speed. You don't have that much fire. You don't have that much love in your heart. Love is freedom. That's the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, isn't it? Go read the Declaration of Independence. I know of no other simpler way to be able to identify what it means to be free to express yourself without any fear. Most people that I talk to, particularly over the last 50 years, okay, that live in a state of fear to express who they really are, is based on the fear of what others will think about if they freely express themselves. That's sad. That's very painful. How am I ever going to get to know who everybody is that is here if you're living in fear to express who you really are? It means I don't really know you. I will never get to really know who you are in your heart. That's why when I have a relationship with a girl, the first thing I do is I dump out all my skeletons. These are the things that I've experienced here as a result of what happened here. Okay? And when a girl begins to read your heart because you're telling her the truth about who you are and what you experienced, then she's going to dump all her skeletons. Now you've cleared all the resistance between both of you. Now you can begin to grow and have a spiritual relationship together through the light, which is what love is. Now you realize the full power of unconditional love because you're not holding each other captive. I'll leave you with that for the day. Have a great day. Hey, here comes the sun. Thank you very much, baby. Yeah.